What is up, guys? Sushi Mancer here. As some of you may have seen, I reached my 100 sub goal on YouTube. I'm extremely happy, and I decided to do this special 100 sub video based on Old Rutstein. Now, the reason for me choosing Old Rutstein specifically is he is a human peasant, and the deck text that I make is for a format we in my play group call Peasant Dragon Highlander. So it's EDH. And Old Rutstein is literally a peasant, a human peasant. So I thought that this specific commander was a very good fit for the 100 sub special. And yeah, let's get right into it. So first off, Rutstein is a 3 mana 1/4 human peasant that reads: when Old Rutstein enters the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If a land card is milled this way, create a treasure. If your creature is milled this way, create a 1/1 insect creature token. And then if a non-creature, non-land card is milled this way, create a blood token. So this by itself, every time you mill a land, you basically create a treasure. So you get some value out of milling lands. If you create a creature, you get a 1/1 green insect. And if you mill a non-creature, non-land card, you create a blood token. And blood tokens is basically, I think for 1 mana you can discard and draw a card, or draw a card and discard a card. So Rutstein really gives you value of milling stuff into the graveyard. But let's hop into the deck. So in the land bay, in the way to ramp, I wanted to keep it as low mana cost as possible with a Firehorn Elves, a Paradise Druid, Search for Tomorrow as a suspend for 2, and then you search for the basic land and put it into play. Elvish Mystic, it's a 1 mana taps for a green. Landware Elf, same story. Charcoal Diamond, it comes in tap, but for 2 mana you can play Charcoal Diamond that taps for 1 black. A Moss Diamond for 2 mana, it comes in tap, you can tap it for green. But most importantly is a Soul Ring. So I'm very glad that I could fit in a Soul Ring into this deck. And it's not always possible because sometimes the value does spike as you add cards to it, but this I managed to keep the deck budget enough but still include a Soul Ring because I just had to, honestly. It's a 100 sub special. Next off, I added this combo just because it is green. Ivy Lane Denizen and Herd Ballad. So Ivy Lane Denizen reads, whenever another green creature enters the battlefield you control, put a +1/+1 count on target creature. And then Herd Ballad reads, whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on Herd Ballad, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. And Ivy Lane Denizen gives Herd Ballad a +1/+1 counter each time a creature enters the battlefield. And when it does, he creates a beast. And this demonstrates an infinite loop until you put a counter on another creature other than Herd Ballad. So you can have a great army. The deck is Golgari, it's black and green. So I just thought I would include this combo anyways because it's very good value and it's pretty cool. And then we're going to get ways to tutor. Because I'll get to this in a second, but a lot of what the deck consists of is playing out of the graveyard, and Auric Lore Mage basically tutors for any card that you put into your graveyard and then shuffle. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Auric Lore Mage. But in this deck specifically, you want to be tutoring for cards. One is Rushed Rebirth. Whenever choose target creature, when that creature dies this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser mana value. Put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. So this tutors for any card. It does need to die, but you can tutor for anything for anything with lesser mana value. Mausoleum Secrets, it's basically you search for a black card with converted mana cost less or equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard. You put it in your hand and then you reveal it and then you shuffle your library. So this the deck does follow an undergrowth theme because you're going to be building your deck with Rutstein. And then I have Diabolic Tutor. It's a 4 mana tutor, and then you don't need to reveal, but you do need to shuffle your library, as all tutors allow you to do. Illicit Shipment is a 5 mana sorcery spell that with casualty 3. and then you can search a library for a card and put it in your hand. But if you sacrifice a creature with power 3 or greater, then you can basically copy this. So this turns into a 5 mana search for 2 cards and put it in your hand, which I think is good. Rastakev's right. 5 mana, you search for a card in your library and put it in your hand, and you have the option to cycle it for 1. But you most should not be doing that. You want to get obviously the card in your hand. And we have ways to interact with the board through Wilderness Reclamation. When it enters, you destroy target artifact or enchantment. Try to blow up people's artifacts or enchantments that slows down the board. Poison the Cup. You can foretell for 2 mana in your in your main phase. Yeah, during your turn, you might pay 2. Then you exile it, and then you can pay 2, 1 generic and 1 black to destroy target creature. If the spell was foretold, try 2. But otherwise, it's basically just a murder. You for 3 mana, you can play it. Return to Nature. This is a kind of a toolbox card, because you can as well exile target card from a graveyard, but otherwise you destroy target artifact or enchantment. Naturalize, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Agonizing Remorse. You look at a target opponent's hand, choose a non-land card from it or a card from the graveyard, then you exile that card. So you can, if the opponent has no cards in hand, to just exile something from his graveyard, but otherwise you can exile it from his hand. Note, it does exile, it does not say discard, so that card is gone as soon as you remove it with Agonizing Remorse. Then Duress, you look at target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. Good way to deal with planeswalkers and instants and sorceries. Also artifacts, but mostly instants and sorceries if you want to get rid of a counter magic turn 1. Tragic Slip, its target creature gets -1, -1, -1 until end of turn. But if a creature died this turn, it gets -13, -13. And it is a 1 mana spell that is instant, so it's quite effective if a creature died this turn, which will happen. Defile, target creature gets -1, -1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. It's just a solid removal, honestly. Like, it deals with indestructible creatures as well, but for the most part, it's just good removal. Price of Fame, it's a very good card, especially in PDH for what it does. It's a 4 mana instant that says destroy a target creature and surveil 2. But if you target a legendary creature, it costs 2 less. So for 2 mana, you can destroy a creature that's legendary and surveil 2. Or you can just pay 4 and destroy a target creature. So it helps turn 2 and turn 4 equally well. Putrefy, destroy target artifact or creature. It can be regenerated. So this does get rid of any cards that has the regenerate function, or if someone tries to regenerate it in some way. Cast down, destroy target non-legendary creature. Unlike Price of Fame, this wants to target anything else but legendaries, as you can't, but it destroys anything that's non-legendary, which I think is very helpful. Then we have, to fit the theme and Rutstein, we have some self-mill cards through Grisly Salvage. It's a 2 mana instant that says reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or land from among them in your hand. Put the rest in your graveyard. So this is one way to mill, to get cards into your graveyard, which you want to be doing. Satyr Wayfinder is a 2 mana Satyr that reads, when Satyr Wayfinder enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put the land card from among them into your hand, put the rest in your graveyard. This is another way to fill your graveyard. Mild Triton also as well. And then Glowspore Shaman. It was printed as common now, but it has been printed in other sets as uncommon. You basically mill 3 and then you can put a land from your graveyard on top of your library. You can also basically mill that land through Rutstein to generate a treasure token. That's it for self mill. Now we want to get to the reason why we want to mill. But before that, I'm going to show you how and what the strat is. So the idea of the deck is basically to reanimate a specific list of cards. I'll get to them in a second, but this basically returns target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you do, it fights up to one target creature you don't control. So it reanimates something and fights. Diagraph Rebirth. It costs one less for each card that creature that died this turn, but you can return a target creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield, and it has flashback for 7 mana. You have Bond of Revival, a 5 mana return target creature card from a graveyard to the battlefield. It gets haste until end of turn, so you can attack that same turn with it. Dreaded turn, it's a 4 mana sorcery that says return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then you can sacrifice 3 creatures and cast it from your graveyard. Blood for Bones, 4 mana, sacrifice a creature, and then you return another creature from your graveyard to your hand. So as an additional cost to this spell, sacrifice a creature. Return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then return another creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So you get something to your hand and to the battlefield. Unearth, you can basically reanimate any 3 mana cost creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, or you can cycle for 2. So as I stated, that this deck is basically a reanimate deck, and there are creatures in this deck that you will want to be reanimating, but I'll get to that in a second. But just to slow down your opponent or have an interaction on the board, you want to be reanimating these cards. First up is Fleshback Marauder. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice each player sacrifices a creature. Demon's Disciple. When Demon's Disciple enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. So if you play this while the opponent only has planeswalkers out, you can basically force them to sacrifice it, or any one planeswalker. Playcrafter, same story. Each player, but it does say each player who can't discards a card. So you will always be slowing down and netting value through reanimating those creatures. And then what to reanimate next is Baleful Force. It's a 7 mana elemental 7/7 body that says at the beginning of each upkeep you draw a card and you lose life. So reanimating this will not only net you um a very high toughness and power threat on the board, but you will also net cards at the beginning of your upkeep. I mean, of each upkeep. So you draw a card on each upkeep. Giant Adaphage is a 7 mana insect that has trample, and that reads, whenever Giant Adaphage deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of Giant Adaphage. So reanimating this and dealing damage to opponents will keep on creating insect tokens, which will eventually flood the board, and it will be very strong. Molderhawk is you don't need to reanimate this, but it does cost less for each creature in your graveyard, so you might be able to play this for 2 mana at the end of the day. But it does read, when Molderhawk enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it is a 6/6, so it's pretty strong and a good board threat. Then Not Left Giant. It's just a 7 mana 6/5 zombie giant, but it does read Undergrowth. When Not Left Giant enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target opponent for each creature card in your graveyard. So having a lot of cards in your graveyard will also help you deal damage through this card, or through reanimating him. And then Eldrazi Devastator, it's a 8 mana 8/9 Eldrazi with trample. That's basically it, but it's a good reanimating target because it's a big board presence and it has trample. It's a good blocker, and you can set a clock for anyone. Then Abhorrent Overlord is a 7 mana demon that has flying, and that reads, when Abhorrent Overlord enters the battlefield, put a number of 1/1 black harpy creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to black. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So this is just a very big board presence that will net you 1/1 harpies with flying. Then Prouding Pangolin, it's a 5 mana 6/5, which I think is very good. But it does read, when Prouding Pangolin enters the battlefield, any player may sacrifice 2 creatures. If a player does sacrifice Prouding Pangolin, so this will either be a very good threat on the board, or people will sacrifice creatures to be able to destroy it. And then last but not least is Massacre Girl. It's a 5 mana 4/4, but it's quite interesting. When she enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Magical gets minus until end of turn. So what this basically happens is, let's say you play Magical, right? She enters the battlefield. Each other creature gets -1/-1. When another creature dies, another -1/-1 counter is not counters, but each other creature gets -1/-1 again. So let's say three creatures die, that's three -1/-1 counters. And it does escalate and continue each time another creature dies. So this could be a board wipe, or this could get rid of pesky 1/1 mana dogs and escalate from there. This in some cases could kill the entire board because each player, it's a very difficult card to explain, but when this was standard legal, I played it in some of my decks, and I think it's just a worthy include to maybe reanimate as a Placido board wipe. Now we're gonna get to just very good value generating cards in the deck. First off is Thief Tools. When it enters, you can create a treasure token, and then equipped creature can be blocked as long as his power is 3 or less. And Rutstein's power is a 1, so you'll always be able to be unblockable. Key to the city, you discard a card. Up to one target creature can be blocked this turn. And then if it comes untapped, you can pay 2 life if you do draw a card. This is good to get reanimation creatures in the graveyard for you to reanimate. Druidic Satchel is a 3 mana artifact that says for 2 mana you tap it and reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. If it's a land card, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. If it's a non-creature, non-land card, you gain 2 life. So with this, you can basically, if you don't want lands, you can basically tap this first before your upkeep to maybe reveal a land, get that on the battlefield, and then mull with Rutstein to maybe hit something else. Death Reap Ritual, it's a 4 mana enchantment that reads, at the beginning of each end step, if a creature dies this turn, draw a card. Well, you may draw a card. It's just good value if anything dies. Fey Offering is a 3 mana enchantment that reads, at the beginning of each end step, if you've cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell this turn, create a clue token, a food token, and a treasure token. So this is just great value. All of this is just literally great value that will help you throughout the game. Next is Regrowth. It's return target card from your graveyard to your hand for 2 mana. That's it. Sun in Blood for 2 mana. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. In Commander, 2 life is not that much. You'll be able to get away with using this to net you 2 cards. Loaming Shaman, if you want to shuffle any cards back into your library, you can do so with Sensuous Shaman. Loaming Shaman. I read Sensuous Shaman is creature type there. This is basically just to stop you from milling out. You can also reanimate him out of the graveyard if you need to shuffle your graveyard back into your library. Genesis is a 4 mana 4 for Incarnation, but at the beginning of your upkeep, if Genesis is in your graveyard, you may pay 3 mana, 1 green and 2 generic. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, so you can always get creatures back if they die through Genesis, if it is in the graveyard. Then Brawn, it's a 4 mana Incarnation as well. Same story, as long as Brawn is in your graveyard and you control a forest, creatures you control have trample, which I think is relevant because sometimes you want to be dealing combat damage and not be chump blocked, and some of the reanimation targets don't have trample. Splinter Fright is a 3 mana elemental with trample that reads, Splinter Fright's power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, mull 2 cards. Again, this helps you if you have a lot of creatures in your graveyard. Then Boneyard Brome is basically the same story, but only for 2 mana. Its power and toughness is also the number of creature cards in your graveyard, but Splinter Fright does allow you to mull 2 cards. Baneseer is, in my opinion, a staple. I put this in any deck that's using the color black. I just like the card so much. It's a 2 mana human wizard 2/2 body that reads Inspired. Whenever Pain Seer becomes untapped, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. If it comes untapped, you can buy it's a Dark Confidant when it untapped. You can get lands through this, you can get anything through this. I don't know why, I just like this card so much. And that's it for generating value. Um a card that I had to include into this deck is Harness Infinity. It's a 7 mana instant that reads exchange your hand and your graveyard. And I think I can't emphasize enough how crazy this card is. It's budget, it's mythic, it's 7 mana, but you can play with your whole graveyard. You literally swap your hand and your graveyard. You do XR Harness Infinity, so you can't recast it. But I think this card is insane, honestly. I like this card so much. And then we get to the land base. We have 1 Evolving Wilds, 18 Forests, and 17 Swamps. That's it for the deck. Sorry I didn't mention that it was a reanimation deck at the beginning of the video. I do record these videos in one take, going through the deck. But yeah, I got thanks for all the support, by the way. I wouldn't have reached 100 subs if it wasn't for you guys, obviously. But I hope you guys enjoyed videos like this. I want to be more consistent now that I know that my YouTube channel is doing good. I like just bringing these ideas into videos and posting them online. I like hearing feedback. I just like everything about doing this. For me, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy myself. I enjoy doing this. But yeah, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video.